Hello, hello. We are live-ish, as I always say, because I have to check and see that we're showing up in all the places. So let's see. Instagram is getting itself together. LinkedIn is getting itself. Here we come. It's coming. It's coming. I see the little the wheel is spinning in LinkedIn. It's getting
Loading.
there. Let's see. Facebook. I'm sure I'm live, but I'm also sure that I'm the only person that can see that I'm live because Facebook has a good sense of humor there. So give me just a moment. If you guys have tuned in before, you realize we have to go through this each and every time. It's loads of fun. All right, so there, there, and now there. We are we are live.
There
All
you
the
go. Under 1 minute. You got all the places.
Yes. Let's see if I can get it under 10 seconds one day, but not today. All right. So happy Tuesday. It is a summertime Tuesday. So I can't wait to see how June goes because, as much as life lifes us on a regular day as an entrepreneur, as a summer entrepreneur with all of the activities and things, it makes it even more fun than it is. The plate just became a platter and it
Yeah.
becomes a platter throughout the whole summer. So that's all right. We're going to go with it like we always do. I always give the same disclaimers. Not only is the kid in the house, but she has one of her best friends here. So there could be occasional 13-year-old girl scream, laughter, dogs barking, all the things. The husband just left, so we should be cleared there. Anything is possible, which is why we are Entrepreneurs Unplugged. I am Tanisha Stallnaker of SVS. We are your go-to agency for operational systems and technical support. Just a bunch of women that love tech. And so I'm excited to have my guest, Ruthie. If you could introduce yourself and tell the people about you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ruthie Sterrett. I am a marketing strategist and founder of the Consistency Corner, which is a holistic marketing agency. And one of the things that I've become known for is the Instagram 9 grid strategy, which allows you to step away from social media without sacrificing your visibility. And it is something in this summer season that I am hearing so many entrepreneurs crave of oh my gosh, I just wish I didn't have to show up on social, or I'm just over it, or oh my gosh, I haven't posted in 3 weeks because I have been so crazy busy. And when am I ever going to get to this? So I love talking about this as a time management strategy because honestly, what I found is most people who can really benefit from an Instagram 9 grid don't even know it exists or what it is. So I'm excited to kind of share this unique strategy with you today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited as well because I can tell you that I'm like if we were superheroes, I'd be your arch enemy. Not because of anything negative on my end, but just because I guarantee I don't follow probably anything correctly in your strategy. So I can't wait to hear more about it. But you answered my first question, which is why you picked this topic. I love the fact that you are tying in your expertise and experience with your 9 grid strategy as a method of time management. I think that is super brilliant and super smart, and I can't wait to hear more about it. Um, it's funny. I remember when I first started my business, in 2020 at the beginning, I had an Instagram account. I created an Instagram business account and a Facebook business account and all that stuff. I knew enough to know what the 9 grid was in theory and can safely tell you now it's not terrible because I don't want Amy to come after me on my team. It's as good as it's ever looked. But I remember when I was trying to do it myself, and I was just like, this is like crazy. The planning that goes into it. It seems like it's super simple, and it absolutely is not. So why would you do this to yourself? Tell me.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love what you said about it seems like it could be super simple, should be super simple, and it's not. And I will preface by saying, I don't know if it's the ADHD in me, but I literally think everything should take 10 minutes and then it doesn't. And then I'm always like, oh my God, why did this take me so long? So I will say from after doing many, many 9 grids for clients, it takes me an average of 10 to 15 hours to do a 9 grid. So if you're doing the first one ever and following my strategy, it is going to take 15 to 20. But here's why I think it's worth that time investment. If we're posting on a regular basis, on average, each post takes an hour. Everybody thinks it doesn't, but it does. When you break down the thinking about the post, the caption for the post, the graphic you're going to use, the hashtag, when you're going to post, how it relates to the rest of your content calendar, it takes an hour per post or more. And we could keep spending hours and hours and hours on the content hamster wheel, or we could put up a 9 grid that we know has all of the important information and set it and forget it and be done with it. And, you talked about putting up a 9 grid and it looks pretty and it looks, as good as it's going to get or good as it's going to get right now. And yes, it is a visual content strategy for those who are unfamiliar with it. It's taking the first 9 posts of your Instagram and kind of creating a puzzle or like a mini website. But there's a strategy and an intention behind each post to take the reader on a journey so that they know who you are, who you serve, how you help, what transformation they can expect, how they can work with you, and how they can get more resources if you're hanging out somewhere other than Instagram. And you're right, there is a lot of planning to it. But once we do it, it's like, I can breathe. I don't have to think about that anymore. And I know when somebody lands on my Instagram because they heard me on a podcast or saw me on a live or found me in a bundle or met me in a networking group, that exactly what they need to know about me is there because I've been intentional with it.
As I suspected, I am absolutely, I'd be like your kryptonite here. Cause now again, Amy, I love you. And so I could say that the information is there. I know that I haven't put the emphasis on her. It's branded. You can tell it's all the same flow and all of that. But when you were like, oh, a post should take, I just knew you were going to say like 15 minutes. And then you said an hour. Now, some of that tracks because the thinking, I think, is the part because I'm an overthinker. And I have some of the most amazing content in this big brain of mine at around 2:00 in the morning. But what I also have is a horrible short-term memory thanks to COVID. And so at 2:00 in the morning, when it's like, oh, that idea is amazing. And then I'll get up and go to the bathroom and I sit back down and it's gone.
Yes.
So there is something to the time investment of the thinking. And then you get somebody like me, it's probably more than an hour just of thinking alone. And then sometimes I overprocess it so much that by the time I sit down with the computer or the phone or wherever I'm going to type it, it's like, never mind.
Yeah. You're like, I've lost it. It's not even going to make the impact. And so many entrepreneurs are either way overthinking like that or throwing spaghetti at the wall, just hoping something sticks, chasing trends, chasing, trending audio or trending memes. And yes, those all can like give you a little shot in the arm, but they're not a long-term strategy. And if you want to build your business, we got to think about our marketing strategy where social media is a piece of the puzzle. It's not an entire strategy in and of itself, just like a coffee cup isn't coffee. It's a container. And we want to be really strategic about what we put in that social media container. And if you love creating posts, by all means, a 9 grid is not for you.
Yeah.
But if you don't have time or you don't love doing it or you're inconsistent because of what's going on in this season of life, a 9 grid fills that container and allows you to move on to other things.
So, I want to make sure I try to be mindful and respectful that I'm not like having people give away the farm and the secret sauce here. But is the idea about with the 9 grid is that, I guess, how long does the set it and forget it last?
Yeah, that's a great question. I recommend that we do at least 90 days.
Okay.
Because that allows you to invest the time where then you're getting your return on investment for your time over the course of 3 months versus like a week or a month or whatever. So at least 90 days. Well, then after those 90 days, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Has anything changed in my business? If nothing has changed, that content is still relevant.
Okay.
And if nothing has changed, then the next question is, did I like not having to create posts? And think about how we feel. And if you're like, oh, I kind of missed it, or I felt some creative sparks, okay, we just move on and now we do something different. But if nothing has changed and you liked not having to do posts, you can keep it up for another 3 months. And because it's a visual content strategy that people can clearly see was done intentionally, and in the first couple of posts, we say something about like, everything you need to know is in this grid, or I don't spend a lot of time posting on Instagram. You can find me XYZ here. people can easily see, oh, this is intentional. She's not like just out of business and doesn't post anymore. They know that you're doing what you're doing for a reason. And so I have clients who refresh theirs about every 6 months. And that is helpful for like the seasonality of business and new offers that you might be launching. Most people within 6 months are going to come out with something new.
Yeah.
And so, at least 90 days, but it could be up to 6 months.
Now I'm getting some ideas. Amy, beware. Because if we could do that like on a quarterly basis. Now, of course, that's really, it sounds like it's definitely geared more towards Instagram than anything. So it doesn't keep us from not sharing or posting in other places. And quite honestly, for someone like me, if I think back through the last near 5 years, I think I've gotten 2 clients from Instagram. So I do these lives and I go live on Instagram, but it's not where most of my activity happens. Most of my activity is going to typically happen on Facebook or LinkedIn. And it's 2 completely different audiences, but I still do the lives. We get some feedback on TikTok and things like that, but each one kind of has its own theme, and so it's more of I put it out just so that in case somebody trips and finds me on Instagram, there's some meat there to back things up. But it's not really where I put my focus. So the 9-grid strategy sounds like it's kind of probably for somebody like me, where Instagram is not where I'm spending my energy. It's not where I'm like really pressed. It's not even really where I go to consume content unless Facebook took me there or something took me out of the original platform. Instagram's not something that I typically go to. So I like the idea that it's something that for businesses or people like me, that only have so much social energy for sharing content. Like Facebook to me, of course, is like more natural. LinkedIn for me is DMs. So it's funny. I probably would never send a DM on Facebook, but for whatever reason, I have zero problem doing it on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of us just kind of put these things in segments. Do you only work with Instagram or do you work with other platforms?
Yeah, I work with other platforms. Now, the 9-grid is typically a starting point for us. And when I design one, depending upon where the client spends time, we might design it in a way that it can be repurposed as individual posts on other platforms.
Ooh.
I even have clients who have taken some of the captions that we've written and repurposed them as emails. So when we create this content strategy based upon what else is happening in your marketing plan, we're going to figure out how to make it worth so you get the most bang for your buck so that you can repurpose, work smarter, not harder. And, a lot of people will ask me about reels and stories. And my answer is always, if you want to do reels and stories, do reels and stories. If you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like you have to do what works for you energetically, what you enjoy. I enjoy stories, so I'm in stories all the time. Reels are kind of like hit or miss. If I'm inspired, I'll do one. If I don't, I don't.
Yeah.
What's important when we consider where we're hanging out on social media is that we also think about the entire marketing funnel. And like I said, social media is a piece of the puzzle. And so asking yourself from a big picture, where am I attracting new audiences? Where am I getting new eyes on my business? Maybe it is Facebook groups. Maybe it is LinkedIn comments. Maybe it is lives with other collaborators or podcast guesting or participating in bundles. Maybe it's ads. It's different for a lot of people, but we want to consider that. And then where am I nurturing? Well, the 9-grid is a nurture tool on Instagram that you can set and forget. And then where am I selling? Well, again, are we taking the 9-grid and moving people to your email list? Are we asking them to send you a DM here so you can have a conversation in the DMs? Are we asking you to come over to LinkedIn or Facebook because that's where you hang out and then you can convert people there? You got to think about the whole puzzle. And honestly, when I got started in my business, I started out doing just social media management. And I got so frustrated because I was like, social media alone doesn't freaking work. And it would like make me mad for my clients because I knew that other things needed to be in place. And that was when I, kind of pivoted and launched my agency as a holistic marketing agency because I don't want to do just social media because social media alone isn't a marketing strategy.
I feel very confident that you have stung a few people. It's probably a good thing that we don't have everybody on camera. It's funny. I'm sure the sting you just gave a few people is similar to when I talk about systems and processes. And I always lead my talks. I have one later today with the same question. And every single time you can see the visceral reaction people have when they feel called out. And I guarantee there's some people out there on the internet that just got called out. I would say I was one of them, but I'm not anymore as much.
Well, here's the thing. We all know it's easy to sell the easy button.
Yeah.
But the reality is there is no easy button. And there are dozens, if not hundreds of different strategies that could work, but you've got to figure out the one that's going to work for you. And if Instagram is working for you and making 8 reels a day is working for you and being on TikTok is working for you, by all means, keep doing it. But if it's not, let's figure out something that will work for you because, there are 3 billion people on Instagram. And people look people up on the internet. That's what we do in 2024. And so to have a presence there that serves you without sucking up all your time, I think it makes sense.
It's funny. To your point, then, this whole series was created for things like that. I wanted to do something that was like a podcast, but not quite a podcast. The name almost was the Not a Podcast. So it was that much where I wanted to have real conversations with real business owners in real life situations where we're not like primed and perfect. And I'm not looking airbrushed like I do on marketing materials where, because I'm like, I feel like I'm catfishing my clients where they see me one way if they just look at my website or whatever. And then the camera opens on Zoom and they get this, or like me halfway in pajamas or something crazy, So I wanted to find something to bridge the gap between presentation me versus real life everyday me. But I also wanted something that could be repurposed and reused. Don't laugh, Leonard. Let's not start this. He comes on every single one of these and jokes when I start talking about this. I'm not a catfish. But we wanted to find some ways to boost SEO and have it on YouTube. And so video content was one of the things that it was like, if I could find a way to be on video where it was super natural for me, because solo lives and me are not friends. The lives last 5.5 minutes. And then it's like, I literally just ran out of my own house to get away from it. But when we have these type of conversations, it can work for any platform and we can kind of play with it and figure out what to share and what not to share. Like we might share more of the blooper things on TikTok or whatever and kind of play with it that way. So I think, I know you're right when it comes to figuring out like, where are your people? I guess I'm curious what your thoughts are, because I've heard the same way there's probably hundreds of strategies, there's also a million opinions. Are you a big fan of taking someone from one platform and directing them to another platform?
Yeah. And here's why. There was a study that Google did recently, and I was shocked when I heard this number, that in order to make a conversion, it takes on average of 11 touch points, 7 hours of content consumption on 4 different platforms.
Well, shit.
Right?
Is a lot.
That's a lot. And now that's on average, and that goes from, $100,000 coaching package or $80,000 vehicle to like a $10 hair tie. But on average, it takes people a lot of content to make decisions. People are making decisions over longer periods of time. They're considering things more. The market is noisy. And it's not just noisy from like a marketing content perspective. Think about how many freaking platforms we have to watch TV on. Like people's attention is just divided. And so to get that attention and create that relationship, it takes a lot of content. And I love what you talked about, creating video content. I like advocate and get on my soapbox with clients that you have to have a long form content container. And that could be video, that could be a podcast, that could be a blog. It could start out as an email newsletter if that's all you have the capacity for. But we have to start with the long form content because that's how you truly build relationships.
Yeah.
Those short form things are great for getting attention and even kind of keeping the relationship fresh and going. But the long form is where people really learn to trust you, where they really get value and decide whether or not they want to work with you. And so it's really important to have a long form container because that's going to provide more of that content that people need to consume to actually be able to make a buying decision.
Yeah, I thank you for making me feel better, even if you didn't intend to. it took a long time. Like, it's funny. I worked in a marketing department when I worked in corporate, and I always worked in either marketing or recruiting. And like, I looked at the two as kind of like same coin, just different sides. And it was really interesting when I transitioned into an online business, because I'm never afraid of selling. I don't mind selling at all. I think every relationship is selling, personal, parent to child, whatever. There's sales and everything in my brain. But the marketing in an online space was so different than me walking into a place and them being able to, like, either for me to attract or repel somebody literally in a matter of seconds, which I'm very good at doing in person. But now doing it on a computer, it just was a completely different thing for me. So it took, quite frankly, the bulk of these years where systems, automation, tech, all of those things came supernatural. And it was like, I got this second skin. I could think about it. I could talk about it in my sleep. And then the marketing piece would come, and it's like, what? When
Yeah.
the first time somebody's like, what are your content pillars? It's like, stop yelling at me. I don't know.
Well, and most business owners did not get into business to be a full-time content creator. They got in business to do what they're good at, execute their zone of genius. And then marketing, it's like, oh, there's this whole other thing I have to do.
Yeah. It's like a whole another business on top of the business. And, so I'm actually really happy that I decided to do the live part of it, because I was like, me going live with somebody else is completely different. It doesn't feel live. Because I joked for years, I could stream every sales call and every conversation and show up how I show up and be perfectly happy. And so it was somebody that was like, well, then why not do that? And just do that as your lives. I was like, all right, well, maybe I won't go that far, but doing these types of things where we have a topic, because this was the vehicle to me that filled in most of the boxes that you just said. So like, I wasn't doing email marketing consistently until this, because now at the very least, we have something to tell you is coming and something to talk about what happened. So if we don't talk about shit else, you have some traffic and some things where people are now starting to realize they're going to hear from me at some point each week about something that happened or is going to happen. There might be that random email in there where I throw in like a promotion of something, but at least I am being honest to where I know I'm going to put my energy and focus. I'm being honest to where I want my team to spend their time when it comes to doing any type of marketing for me, And so I really needed to figure out, like, how am I going to surpass my pluses and minuses when it comes to marketing and still be out there. And you're right. People are taking longer to make a choice, although I don't know that I would have thought about the 7 hours and 11 touches. And that's just freaking boggling.
Well, I thought about that stat for people who like TikTok as their main platform. Like, that's a lot of 7-second videos you got to make.
Oh yeah, which is why I haven't put up a TikTok video. Okay, so side note, I fell down that 10K rabbit hole on TikTok. And I think by day 3 was like, this feels like a part-time job, like engaging with a bunch of random people on a Tuesday because I just happened to come across things. And now, I mean, I got some new followers and stuff out of it, and it's nice, but I'm like, all right, I'm tapped out because it was so much energy. And not to mention that it was so much of my energy on what to say and what to post and what to repost. But then now I'm also bringing in a whole nother realm of other people's energy and shit. I think that TikTok is basically all psychics and Forex traders at this point, because that's all I get hit up by. But, I think we also just need to be honest about, like, what level of mental energy do we have to put someplace, and where's the best place to put it? And the market is changing, not in my most favorite way, because people are taking twice as long to make a decision. I think the residual of the pandemic and the boom of online businesses and everybody taking that time that they were all home and starting these businesses, and some worked and a lot didn't, and people got burned and, all of that stuff. Now it's kind of settling back to almost like pre-COVID type things, and the people that are left are a little a lot more skeptical when it comes to who they're going to trust, where they're going to put their time, where they're going to put their money, and what type of support they're going to get in their business.
Yeah.
The good, bad, and the ugly of it is there's information everywhere. And I do believe that on top of the Pied Pipers doing so well in the last couple of years and now fizzling out and leaving people kind of like with PTSD, I think the other thing is that there is a boom of people that were just basically telling everybody, well, you could just look this up and find the information and do it yourselves, which is technically true. But there's a lot of people screwing that up too. And so when you have that, all of that together, 2024 brought in just a bunch of exhausted entrepreneurs now, like with decision paralysis of sorts. And so the marketing messaging has had to shift also to find a different way to kind of break that barrier, to get people to understand, we're not monsters. We're just going to fix your tech and let you go, that type of thing. And, changing. Are you seeing that with your clients and stuff like that?
Yeah. And that's the reason that branding is literally so important. And when I say branding, I don't mean pretty colors and your logo. I mean, what is your mission? What's your vision? What are your freaking brand values? Like, what's your unique point of view? I'm sitting here on my soapbox about social media is not a strategy. Like, that's my point of view. And that's what I'm going to talk about. And a lot of business owners, I find that they have a point of view, but they've never gotten it out of their heads and put it on paper.
Yeah.
So when they try to outsource content, let's say to a social media manager or to their internal team, it doesn't hit because they haven't been able to communicate those really important, critical brand building blocks. And so we got to start there, because to your point, like the glossy, copycat Amy Porterfield, like, doesn't work anymore. You got to be a real person. You got to know who you are. You got to know who you serve. You got to know what you stand for. And you've got to weave that into your content to build relationships. And so when I sit down with a client to do a done for you 9 grid, those are my first 3 questions. What's your mission? What's your vision? What's your values? And if you've never written them down, we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to pull it out of you, because it's so important to incorporate that into your content. And it's not just fluffy stuff. I worked for a 8-figure retail brand that had done pretty well over their first several years. And then I came in as marketing director, and they were kind of starting to struggle. And A, they hadn't defined their ideal client, and B, they hadn't defined their brand values. And when we sat down and did that and worked on that literally over the course of 6 months and pulled together a brand guide, we were able to start creating content that actually resonated, that actually built relationships and drove sales. And that was the foundation that set them up for like a 5x revenue growth over the next couple of years. And I truly believe it's because the consistency in the branding was clarified first, so that our content could continue to reinforce that and really build those relationships.
I like it. And it's funny, I'm sitting there thinking, so you said 8-figure business with no mission, vision, or values, and they still managed to hit 8 figures.
Now they had a mission. They did have a mission statement, and they had this business had started in 2013, I believe. So they'd been around. But as the market evolved, because again, what even was working in 2013 wasn't necessarily working in 2018. Yeah. 2013 is not right. It was earlier than that. But I joined the team in 2017. But the market was evolving, because the market always evolves. Because people keep evolving. Like, your business is going to ebb and flow. It is going to change, because you are going to change. Your audience is going to change. And that's okay. But it's important to like step back sometimes and see the forest through the trees and think about all of that. And a lot of times for CEOs, like, they're so in it, it's like they're inside a Coke bottle. And so you can't see. So you need a strategic partner who's outside looking in to help you kind of figure out what needs to be rewritten on the label, what needs to change and shift to make it work today.
It's I didn't do it out loud, but in my head, I was laughing because earlier, some people on my team are working on like some blog posts and stuff like that. And one of them was, what is an operational business consultant? What do they do? What do they offer? And so the blog's fine. Like, the content in there is fine. And it was a matter of me giving some input on how am I approaching it differently. And you and I have very similar, our offers are similar in the sense of how we're supporting business owners. We just have chosen different buckets or fields to do so. It took a very like a few years of the business that I've in for me to like realize what the only real difference is, that my natural brain is being a fixer. And I am like that everywhere to my detriment, but I can't turn that off. But if I had a me, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe not like literal personality me, but you know what I'm saying, like the fixing part, because I don't know if y'all want two of me. But and yes, you are right. Peopling is real. It takes so much bandwidth. Somebody said on Instagram. And yes, is that 100,000%? Yes. I'm trying to look at all the things out the comments. I think that, you know, having that support, like when we're thinking of this in the realm of time management, having somebody who can come in and say, listen, I see that you've tried these 15 things in your marketing, or these 15 things, you know, like in your your systems and in your processes. How about I just show you this?
Mm-hmm.
Based on my experience in this area, based on my clients, based on what I've seen work and not work over and over and over again. Let's do it this way. Let's simplify it for you and do it this way.
Yeah. I had a strategy session with a client once who was going to do her own 9 grid. She purchased my templates and she booked a strategy session to kind of like walk through it with me. And I gave her some, you know, thoughts on the direction I thought she should go and how she should leverage it for some different launches and different things. And she was like, oh my God, within 10 minutes of talking to you, I feel physical relief from being able to figure this out, because she was just in her head and she didn't know. And so to your point, like someone with that experience who can look at it in a different way and said, what if we tried this? It's like, oh,
yeah,
of course.
You can always see somebody else's thing much more clearly than you can see your own.
Yes.
The glass is cloudy as shit when I turn it internally. It's super clear when I look at everybody else's stuff. I can look at somebody's stuff on our audits, and within a few minutes, it's like, oh, well, we need to fix this and change this, and I've just saved you $300 and some time and blah, blah, blah. But when I look at my own stuff, and suddenly, you know, all that goes out the window, and I'm like, can somebody help me, please? You know?
Yeah.
But I think that when it comes to time management, a lot of it, yes, there's tools and all that kind of stuff, but I think a lot of it really is figuring out, finding your person in the areas that you are not strong. So, you know, yeah, the systems and tech I got, but the marketing, you know, the strategy part of the marketing, you know, I have lucked up and had somebody who is very supportive and has been on the team for a while, but it took us a little bit to kind of figure out our groove. But I just was like, just take it. I wish you the best, you know? And so, you know, she had to just kind of bear with me for a little bit, because it was something that it made such a big stressor for me that I was like, screw it. I'm not touching this shit at all. I'm just going to focus on the systems, the tech, and taking care of clients. And not those areas where I know I'm strong. Good luck.
And that's a time management strategy in and of itself. Like, you got to outsource to the things that suck your energy, because not only then is it sucking your time, but it's taking out your energy that then makes your other time not as productive. And so being able to recognize those things, like, is it a project I need to hand off? Is it an entire, you know, department? Do I need someone long-term? Do I need someone for a short project? Whatever it is. And I get it. In 2024, when like money is tight and you're not sure if the revenue is going to be there, sometimes figuring out where to invest, if you even can invest, it's a big decision. I totally get that and respect that. But at the end of the day, if you're like, can I keep doing what I'm doing for a year, 6 months? If the answer is no, you got to invest, because then you're going to just, you know, run yourself into the ground. And then you're like, well, I should have invested a long time ago.
Yeah. You know, that hindsight being 2020 is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was very intentional in what I invested in this year as far as the support. Has it been painful conversations from time to time? Yes. But I know that looking at the long game of things, it's beneficial. And I would say that's for anybody that's looking for somebody, whether it's for marketing strategy, whether it's system strategy, whether it's financial strategy. Those are big areas that tend to be the downfall of a lot of people, their sanity and potentially their business. And sometimes it's a combination of all three. But I think the biggest thing, whether it's this live or any of them, is just being able to expose people to the potential support that's out there, and being able to have a natural insight to who somebody is. So it's like if somebody had looked you up and seen you on LinkedIn and be like, well, Ruthie seems cool, but this is an opportunity for people to like hear you and kind of get a read on things where it's like, oh, I don't know that I'd feel like a complete failure going and talking to her. I'm going to feel comfortable. She's going to make me feel confident, and I'm going to be able to get something out of this, and she's going to simplify it for me, and so I want people, if you take nothing from this, if you look at any of the episodes, I want you to look at the idea that we're trying to expose you to support that I would trust if I needed to invest in those areas, because I'm not going to have a guest that I wouldn't hire. But then just seeing what's possibly out there.
Yeah. Because just see what's possibly out there, because you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes you don't even know the questions that you need to be asking. Like, we're talking about the 9-grid strategy, and I've thought about this a lot because for the most part, the business owners that can benefit from it don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So when I think about like even keywords and SEO, like you notice that my topic today wasn't how to use an Instagram 9-grid. It was how to step away from social media without sacrificing visibility, because someone's not Googling 9-grids because they don't know it exists. And so even taking the time to watch lives like this or listen to podcasts to expose you to things that you don't know is such an investment of your time in your business that I think like pays off, 10x over the long run.
Agreed. So, last couple of questions. If someone wants to work with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah. I hang out on Instagram. So come check me out over there. Look at my 9-grid to kind of get a visual idea for what it is. At the Consistency Corner is my handle. And then you can learn more about working together and the tools and resources I offer at theconsistencycorner.com.
Wonderful. And I would love to have a really well-formed spiel like that, but you essentially can find me at this point on every platform other than X. So I guess for the sake of sounding like I, have some sense, and based on activity, I guess you could find me on Instagram or LinkedIn today. And, we'll do an audit of your current systems and processes and take it from there. But of course, if you are not doing so already, please make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube at Work with SVS. So are there any things that you want to share before we wrap up? I want to be very mindful of time for you. Is there anything that you forgot or left out or want to make sure that you share?
I have one little tidbit that I want to share. If the 9-grid feels like this is too much, I don't have time to invest in that, I don't have money to invest in that, I just don't know if I'm ready for that type of commitment, the thing that everybody needs is a 3-grid, which is the 3 pinned posts at the top of your profile. And just like the 9-grid, there's a strategy behind it. And I am like literally like so close to being able to launch an offer to support you with 3 grids as well as 9 grids. So stay tuned for that, because that might be what you need if you're not ready for a 9-grid.
Options. I like it. Well, I appreciate you so much, Ruthie, and thank you for being with me today, especially like I said, before we went live, just the summer is just different, and our schedules managed to get even busier than they were already. And so I appreciate anybody taking summer time out to come and join me. And I can't wait to, if anybody has any questions for me or Ruthie, feel free to catch us on replays, ask questions, and we'll make sure to get back to you. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and the rest of your summer. See you all soon.